The transport ship landed on the Academy platform with a soft hiss. Daeho stepped out, carrying only a small bag. He looked around at the massive training complex that stretched across the horizon. Buildings made of materials he couldn't name rose into the purple sky. Creatures of every shape and size walked past him, barely giving him a second glance. He was the first human instructor ever hired by the Galactic Training Academy. Nobody seemed happy about it. A tall, scaled creature approached him. Its eyes were cold and yellow, and its voice came out like gravel scraping against metal. "You are the human," it said. Not a question, a statement of disappointment. "I am Instructor Daeho," he replied calmly. "I am Velthar, Senior Combat Trainer. Follow me." The creature turned and walked away without waiting. Daeho followed through corridors filled with young cadets. They trained with weapons that hummed with energy. They moved through obstacle courses that would kill a normal human in seconds. Everywhere he looked, he saw strength and speed that his species could never match. They reached an office. Velthar sat down behind a desk and pulled up a holographic display. "The Council has made a mistake hiring you, but I must follow their orders. You will be assigned a training squad." Daeho nodded. He had expected this attitude. "However," Velthar continued, and something like a smile crossed its face, "I choose which squad. You will take the rejects, the failures, the ones who cannot be trained." 3 files appeared in the hologram. Daeho studied them carefully. The first was Hana, a Velkari. Her species looked like large cats that walked on 2 legs. Her file was full of failed assessments, poor coordination, slow reaction time, multiple injuries from basic exercises. The notes said she was clumsy and would never make a soldier. The second was Taimin, a Rakshar, reptilian, strong, and fast. But his file showed a different problem. Too aggressive. Doesn't follow orders. Fights instructors. Dangerous to his own team. The notes recommended dismissal. The third was Jiwoo, a Threnny. Insectoid with 4 arms and multiple eyes. Brilliant tactical mind according to the tests, but physically weak. Failed every combat trial. Too fragile for military service. The notes said he should transfer to research instead. "These 3 have failed basic training 4 times, Velthar said. "They will be dismissed at the end of this cycle unless they pass. You have 8 weeks. When you fail, the Council will see that humans have no place teaching superior species." Daeho looked up from the files. "Where are they now?" "In the reject barracks. Building 7. Dismissed." Daeho found Building 7 at the edge of the Academy grounds. It was older than the other structures, less maintained. Inside, 3 young beings sat on bunks looking miserable. Hana noticed him first. Her ears went flat against her head. "Another instructor? We already know we're failures. You don't need to remind us." Taemin didn't even look up. His tail swished angrily against the floor. Jiwoo's many eyes studied Daeho carefully. "You're human," he said quietly. "Why would they send a human to train us?" Daeho set his bag down. "My name is Daeho. I'm your new instructor. Pack your things. We're moving to a different training ground." "What's the point?" Hana asked. Her voice was tired. "We've failed 4 times. We'll fail again." "Maybe," Daeho said. "Or maybe you've been trained the wrong way." Taemin's head snapped up. "Are you saying the Academy methods are wrong?" "I'm saying they're wrong for you. Now pack. We leave in 10 minutes. The new training ground was far from the main academy. It was an old facility that nobody used anymore. The equipment was basic. The buildings were simple, but it was isolated, and that's what Daeho wanted. The 3 cubs stood in front of him, confused and suspicious. They had never been separated from other cadets before. Daeho didn't start with exercises or drills. He sat down on the ground and gestured for them to sit too. They exchanged glances but obeyed. "First question," Daeho said. "Why do you want to be soldiers?" The cubs stared at him. Hana's ears twitched. Taimin's claws extended slightly. Jiwoo's eyes blinked in sequence. "What kind of question is that?" Taimin asked. "A simple one. Why are you here?" "Because the Rakshar are warriors," Taimin said. "It's what we do." "My family has served in the fleet for 6 generations," Hana said softly. "I can't be the one who breaks that tradition." Jiwoo was quiet for a moment. "Because I'm small and weak. I wanted to prove I could be strong." Daeho nodded. "Those are your reasons. Now tell me what the other instructors told you about yourselves." The cubs looked down. Nobody wanted to answer. "They said I'm too clumsy," Hana finally whispered, "that I'll get my squad killed." "They said I'm too aggressive," Taimin growled, "that I can't be controlled." "They said I'm too weak," Jiwoo said, "that I should quit." Daeho stood up. "Here's what I see. Hana, you've been injured 17 times in training. That means you've gotten back up 17 times. Taimin, you fought 4 instructors. That means you have courage, even against impossible odds. Jiwoo, you scored highest in tactical assessments. That means your mind is your weapon." He looked at each of them. "You're not failures. You're being trained like you're something you're not. My job is to train you as what you are." "And what are we?" Hana asked. "Survivors," Daeho said. "Now let's begin." He didn't teach them weapon drills. He didn't make them fight each other. Instead, he took them on a run. Just a simple run around the training ground perimeter. Hana fell twice. Daeho waited for her to get up. Taimin wanted to sprint ahead. Daeho made him stay with the group. Jiwoo collapsed after 1 kilometer. Daeho gave him 2 minutes to rest, then made him continue. They ran until the sun set. By the end, all 3 were exhausted, confused, and angry. "This is training?" Taimin demanded. "This is day 1, Daeho replied. "Tomorrow we run again, and the day after, and the day after that, until you understand what humans learned a long time ago." "What's that?" Jiwoo asked between gasps for air. Daeho smiled slightly. "That you don't have to be the strongest or the fastest. You just have to refuse to quit." In the main academy, Velthar reviewed surveillance footage of the day's training. The human had made them run. That was all. Just run. Velthar laughed. In 8 weeks, these rejects would still be rejects, and the human would be gone. 3 weeks passed. The main academy buzzed with rumors about the human instructor and his reject squad. Instructors whispered in the training halls. Cadets gossiped in the mess hall. Everyone wanted to know what was happening in that isolated training ground. What they didn't see was the transformation taking place. Every morning before dawn, Daeho woke the 3 cubs. They ran 5 kilometers before breakfast. Hana fell less often now. Her body was learning balance through repetition. Taimin no longer tried to race ahead. He understood that endurance mattered more than speed. Jiwoo's thin legs were stronger. He could complete the run without stopping. After running came the real training. But it looked nothing like traditional academy methods. Daeho took them into the forest near the training ground. "You see those trees?" he asked, pointing to a cluster of tall trunks. "Taimin, I want you to get from here to there without touching the ground." "That's impossible," Taimin said. "Then figure out how to make it possible." Taimin stared at the trees, thinking. Finally, he jumped to a low branch, climbed higher, and leaped between trees. It took him 20 minutes, but he reached the target. "Good," Daeho said. "Now teach the others." This was different from academy training. There, instructors demonstrated once and expected perfection. Here, the cubs learned from each other. They failed together. They succeeded together. For Hana, Daeho created chaos. He would throw objects at her randomly during exercises. She had to dodge, catch, or deflect them while moving through obstacle courses. At first, she failed constantly. Objects hit her, and she stumbled. "I'm too clumsy for this," she said after a particularly bad day. "You're not clumsy," Daeho replied. "You're unpredictable. Learn to use that." He explained that her movements were erratic to others, not just to herself. In combat, unpredictability was a weapon. Enemies couldn't anticipate what she would do next. Over the following days, Hana stopped trying to move perfectly. She moved naturally, and suddenly she was harder to hit. For Jiwoo, Daeho focused on preparation and planning. "You'll never be as strong as Taemin," he said bluntly. "So don't fight his fight. Fight yours." He taught Jiwoo to study terrain, to set traps, to think 3 moves ahead. They spent hours analyzing battle scenarios. Where would enemies come from? What would they expect? How could the environment become a weapon? Jiwoo absorbed everything like a sponge. His 4 arms could work on multiple tasks simultaneously. While others relied on strength, he relied on intelligence. One evening, a visitor arrived at the training ground. Miran was a human diplomat assigned to the sector. She was older than Daeho, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "The Academy is watching you," she said without greeting. "Velthar wants you to fail." "I know," Daeho replied. "He's arranging something. A test. He wants to embarrass your students in front of everyone." "Let him." Miran studied him carefully. "You're confident." "I'm prepared." She smiled slightly. "Just like Earth Special Forces. Never quit, never surrender." After she left, Daeho gathered his 3 students. "In a few days, you'll face other cadets in a training exercise. They'll be bigger, faster, and stronger than you." The cubs looked nervous. Hana's tail curled around her feet. Taemin's claws clicked against each other. Jiwoo's eyes darted between his teammates. "But they've been trained one way," Daeho continued. "The Academy way, direct combat, honor fighting, face-to-face battles. You've been trained differently." "How do we fight them?" Jiwoo asked. "You don't fight fair. You fight smart." The next few days were intense. Daeho taught them tactics that made Academy instructors uncomfortable. Ambush tactics, retreating to better positions, using distractions and feints, fighting as a coordinated team instead of individual warriors. The Academy way valued honor and strength. The human way valued victory and survival. When the day came, Velthar assembled the entire Academy in the main training arena. He announced a friendly exercise between different squads. Daeho's 3 cubs would face 8 cadets from the elite advanced class. The elite squad was led by Youngsu, a Draxian warrior. His species were known across the galaxy for their combat prowess. He looked at Hana, Taemin, and Jiwoo with obvious contempt. "This will be quick," he told his squad. "These are the rejects. Show them why they don't belong here." The exercise took place in a large, simulated environment. Urban ruins filled with broken buildings and narrow passages. The rules were simple. Eliminate the opposing team or capture their flag. The elite squad moved in formation, weapons ready. They advanced through the center of the ruins, confident and strong. They never saw the first attack coming. Jiwoo had positioned himself on a rooftop. He used a small mirror to reflect light into their eyes at a critical moment. 2 elites stumbled, blinded temporarily. In that instant, Hana and Taemin struck from different angles. Hana's movements were chaotic, impossible to predict. She darted in, struck twice, and vanished into a building before anyone could react. Taemin hit hard and fast, then retreated immediately instead of engaging in prolonged combat. Youngsu shouted orders, trying to organize his confused squad. They regrouped and pursued, but every corridor led to another ambush. Every open space had a trap waiting. Jiwoo had spent hours studying the terrain. He knew every sight line, every hiding spot, every tactical advantage. He directed his teammates through small hand signals, coordinating attacks that hit from multiple directions simultaneously. The elite squad grew frustrated. This wasn't how combat was supposed to work. Where was the honor? Where was the direct confrontation? But Daeho's cubs didn't care about honor. They cared about winning. One by one, the elites were eliminated. Hana used her unpredictable movements to confuse and disorient. Taemin channeled his aggression into precise, devastating strikes before withdrawing. Ji-woo orchestrated everything from positions of advantage. The entire exercise lasted 4 minutes. When the final elite cadet fell, the arena went completely silent. Instructors stared in disbelief. Cadets whispered in shock. 8 advanced warriors had been defeated by 3 rejects. Young-soo removed his training helmet, his face twisted with rage and humiliation. "They cheated," he declared. "They didn't fight with honor." Velthar stepped forward, his expression dark. He reviewed the combat footage on a holographic display. Every tactic was unconventional. Every strategy violated traditional combat doctrine. But nothing broke the rules. "Who trained you to fight like this?" Velthar demanded, approaching the 3 cubs. Hana, Taemin, and Ji-woo looked at each other. Then, simultaneously, all 3 raised their arms and pointed across the arena. They pointed at Daeho. The human stood quietly at the edge of the arena, arms crossed, expression neutral. He didn't celebrate. He didn't gloat. He simply nodded to his students. Velthar's eyes narrowed. "This is not proper military training. These tactics are dishonorable." "These tactics work," a voice said from the observation deck. Counselor Rathine descended the stairs, her ancient eyes studying the combat footage with intense interest. "I want to see more." Velthar turned to her in surprise. "Counselor, surely you don't approve of—" "I approve of results," she interrupted. "These 3 have shown more improvement in 3 weeks than in 4 previous training cycles. The human has done something our best instructors could not." She looked directly at Daeho. "I'm ordering a full evaluation. Your squad will face our top combat team in a comprehensive war game, 2 weeks from now." Daeho met her gaze and nodded once. As the crowd dispersed, still buzzing with conversation, the 3 cubs approached their instructor. "We won," Hana said, her voice filled with wonder. "You survived," Daeho corrected. "The real test is coming." The academy couldn't stop talking about it. In every corridor, in every training room, cadets and instructors discussed the impossible victory. 3 rejects had defeated 8 elite warriors. The footage was analyzed again and again. Velthar watched the recordings until his eyes hurt. He studied every movement, every tactic, every decision. What he saw disturbed him deeply. These weren't random lucky victories. This was systematic, coordinated warfare using principles he had never encountered. The ambushes followed patterns. The retreats were strategic, not cowardly. The team moved like a single organism, each member knowing exactly what the others would do. This wasn't luck. This was training at a level that shouldn't be possible in just 3 weeks. He called the 3 cubs to his office individually. Hana came first. She sat nervously, her tail wrapped tight around her body. Velthar loomed over her, his voice cold. "Explain your tactics," he demanded. I just moved," Hana said, "like Instructor Daeho taught me." "Your movements were erratic, undisciplined. He said unpredictable is better than perfect." Velthar's claws clicked against his desk. "Who taught you the ambush positions?" "Ji-woo found them. Daeho taught him to study terrain." "And the coordinated attacks?" "We trained together, always together. Daeho said a team that trusts each other is stronger than individual warriors." Velthar dismissed her and called Taemin next. The young Rakshar entered with his usual aggressive posture, but something had changed. His aggression was controlled now, focused. "You struck and retreated repeatedly," Velthar said. "Your species doesn't retreat. Rakshar fight to the end." "Daeho said fighting to the end means you're dead," Taemin replied. "Better to survive and fight again." "That's cowardice. That's victory." Taemin's eyes were steady. I'm still here. The elites are not. When Ji-woo entered, Velthar tried a different approach. The Threnny was intelligent. Perhaps he could be reasoned with. Your tactical planning was impressive, Velthar said almost kindly. Tell me, did the human teach you specific strategies? Or did you develop them yourself? Ji-woo's multiple eyes blinked thoughtfully. Daeho taught me how to think, not what to think. He showed me that my body's weakness doesn't matter if my mind is strong. He taught me to see the battlefield as a puzzle to solve, not a place to prove strength. These methods are contrary to everything the Academy teaches. Yes, Ji-woo agreed. That's why they work. Velthar dismissed him, frustration building. He reviewed the footage one more time and finally asked the question he'd been avoiding. He summoned all 3 cubs together. They stood before him, no longer looking like failures. They stood straight, confident, united. Who trained you? Velthar asked quietly. Really trained you? Not just in tactics, but in thinking like this. The 3 cubs exchanged glances. Then Hana, Taemin, and Ji-woo all raised their arms simultaneously. They pointed toward the window, where across the academy grounds, Daeho was running laps around the training field. Always training, always preparing. The human, they said in unison. Velthar felt something unfamiliar. Not quite fear, but close. Respect, perhaps, mixed with concern. A primitive species from a backwater planet had accomplished what the greatest military academy in the galaxy could not. He had taken 3 failures and turned them into warriors. The Counselor's war game was announced officially. The entire academy would watch. Daeho's 3 cubs would face the champion squad, 12 of the best cadets the academy had produced in a decade. The battle would take place in the Grand Arena, a massive simulated environment with urban zones, forests, and open plains. News spread beyond the academy. Other training facilities heard about the human and his unusual methods. Military observers requested permission to attend. The war game became an event. In the medical bay, Bo-Ra examined the 3 cubs for their pre-game health assessment. She was a Kelthian, gentle and thorough. As she scanned them, she noticed something unusual. Your muscle density has increased significantly, she told Hana. Your coordination scores are in the normal range now. 3 weeks ago, you were classified as combat incapable. I run every day, Hana said simply, and I don't give up anymore. Bo-Ra checked Taemin's aggression markers. They were still high, but controlled. His stress responses were regulated. You've learned emotional control, she observed. That's remarkable progress. Daeho taught me that anger is a tool, Taemin said. Tools are only useful if you control them. When she examined Ji-woo, Bo-Ra was even more surprised. His physical strength had improved, but more importantly, his confidence levels were completely different. You're not afraid anymore, she said. I learned I don't need to be strong like them, Ji-woo replied, gesturing toward the larger cadets outside. I just need to be smart and refuse to quit. Bo-Ra filed her report with a note. Significant psychological and physical improvement. Training methods should be studied. Meanwhile, Daeho prepared his students for the real test. 2 weeks wasn't much time, but humans had learned to make the most of limited time. He took them to the Grand Arena before it was set up for the war game. They walked through the empty terrain, and Ji-woo took notes on every detail: sight lines, cover positions, choke points, elevation advantages. The champion squad will rely on superior firepower and direct assault, Daeho explained. They've won every war game for 2 years using the same tactics. Overwhelming force. How do we beat overwhelming force? Hana asked. You don't fight it directly. You make it work against itself. He drew diagrams in the dirt, showing them how to split enemy formations, how to create confusion, how to turn strength into weakness. The larger the force, the harder it was to coordinate. The more powerful the weapons, the more hesitation there might be in using them in close quarters. "They'll expect you to hide and defend," Deho said. "So you'll attack immediately. They'll expect you to stay together. So you'll split up. They'll expect traditional tactics. So you'll do the opposite." Late one night, Hana found Deho sitting alone, staring at the stars. She approached quietly and sat beside him. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Of course." "Why do you believe in us? Everyone else gave up. The other instructors, our previous squads, even our families thought we'd fail. But you never did. Why?" Deho was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke softly. "On my planet, Earth, humans weren't always the strongest. Millions of years ago, we were prey. Bigger, faster, stronger creatures hunted us. We should have gone extinct." "But you didn't," Hana said. "No, because we learned something important. We learned that strength isn't just physical. We learned to adapt, to think, to work together, and most importantly, to never give up. No matter how many times we fell, we got back up. That's what made us survive." He looked at Hana directly. "You've fallen 17 times in training and gotten back up every time. Taemin has fought impossible battles and kept fighting. Jiwoo has faced his weaknesses and found ways around them. You three have the most important quality any soldier can have." "What's that?" "You refuse to quit. That's all any human ever had, and it was enough to conquer an entire planet." Hana's ears perked up. "Do you think we can win?" "I think you can survive anything if you believe in each other and refuse to give up. Win or lose doesn't matter. What matters is that you never stop trying." But privately, Deho knew the truth. This war game wasn't just about his 3 students anymore. It was about proving that different methods could work. That the rejects of the galaxy deserved a chance. That human thinking had a place among the stars. In his office, Velthar also prepared. He had chosen the champion squad personally. He had designed the war game scenario. He would prove that traditional methods were superior, that the humans' victory was a fluke. But deep down, a small part of him wondered. What if he was wrong? The galaxy was about to find out. The grand arena was filled with spectators. Instructors from across the sector had arrived to watch. Military observers from a dozen species sat in the premium viewing sections. Cadets packed the standing areas, whispering excitedly. Everyone wanted to see if the humans' methods would work against the best the Academy had to offer. In the preparation room, Hana, Taemin, and Jiwoo checked their equipment. Non-lethal training weapons that delivered painful but harmless energy pulses, basic armor, communication devices, standard gear for all participants. Deho stood with them, calm and quiet. "Remember everything you've learned," he said. "Trust each other, trust yourselves, and don't fight their fight. Fight yours." Across the arena, the champion squad prepared differently. Young-Soo led them, still angry from his previous defeat. His team consisted of the Academy's elite, powerful warriors from species known for combat excellence. They had weapons training, size advantages, combat experience. "They got lucky last time," Young-Soo told his squad. "This time we crush them properly. No mercy, no hesitation. Show them what real warriors look like." Counselor Rathine stood at the center observation platform. Her ancient voice carried through speakers across the arena. "The rules are simple. Capture the enemy flag or eliminate all opposing team members. The battlefield includes urban ruins, forest terrain, and open plains. Weapons are non-lethal, but pain is real. Victory requires skill, strategy, and teamwork." She paused dramatically. "Begin." The champion squad moved immediately into formation. 12 warriors advancing in coordinated units. 3 groups of 4, each covering different angles. They moved toward the center of the battlefield, where intelligence suggested the Cubs would defend. But the Cubs weren't defending. They were attacking. Jiwoo had spent 2 weeks studying the champion squad's previous victories. He knew exactly how they operated. They always controlled the center ground first, then pushed outward. It was effective, proven, and predictable, so the cubs did the opposite. Hana moved through the forest on the eastern flank, completely alone. Her clumsy movements made her nearly impossible to track. She triggered a simple noise trap that Jiwoo had prepared, drawing the attention of one champion unit. 4 elite warriors moved to investigate. They found empty forest and a mocking message scratched in the dirt. "Wrong way!" While they searched, Taemin hit the western flank like a hammer. He struck fast and brutal at a different champion unit, eliminated one member, and vanished before they could respond. His aggression was perfectly controlled, focused into a surgical strike. The champion squad tried to regroup. Young-soo shouted orders, pulling his scattered units back together. But every time they formed up, another attack came from a different direction. Jiwoo orchestrated everything from high ground, using his multiple eyes to track all movements simultaneously. He communicated with his teammates through brief hand signals when they passed through sight lines. No radio chatter that could be intercepted. Pure visual coordination. The urban ruins became a maze of confusion for the champion squad. Every building could hide an ambush. Every corner could be a trap. They had superior numbers and firepower, but they couldn't use either effectively when the enemy refused to present a target. One champion unit made the mistake of pursuing Hana through a narrow alley. She led them perfectly into Jiwoo's prepared trap. Debris fell from above, blocking their escape. Taemin hit them from behind while Hana turned and attacked from the front. 3 more champions eliminated in seconds. Young-soo realized what was happening. "They're splitting us up. Stay together." But staying together made them slow. And slow targets were easy targets for cubs who had learned to strike and vanish like ghosts. The forest section became Hana's playground. Her unpredictable movements meant she could approach from angles nobody expected. She would appear, strike, and disappear into the trees before anyone could react. The champions tried to track her, but tracking chaos was impossible. In the open plains, Taemin faced off against Young-soo directly. The Draxian was bigger, stronger, and had better weapons. But Taemin didn't fight fair. He used the terrain, forcing Young-soo to fight uphill into the sun on unstable ground. Every advantage went to the smaller, smarter fighter. "Stand and fight like a warrior!" Young-soo roared. "I'm not a warrior," Taemin replied, dodging another strike. "I'm a survivor." He led Young-soo into another trap. Jiwoo had positioned himself on a ridge with a perfect sight line. One shot from elevation, and Young-soo was eliminated. The battle continued for 6 hours. The champion squad grew exhausted, frustrated, and demoralized. They had trained for direct combat, for overwhelming force, for honorable warfare. They had no training for an enemy that refused to fight on their terms. One by one, the champions fell. Each elimination was a lesson in adaptive thinking. Each defeat was proof that the old methods had weaknesses. Finally, only 2 champions remained, defending their flag in a fortified position in the urban center. They were tired, angry, and desperate. They knew the cubs were coming, but they didn't know from where. Jiwoo approached from underground, through old maintenance tunnels he'd discovered during his terrain study. Hana came from above, climbing building exteriors with her improved coordination. Taemin walked straight through the front entrance, drawing fire and attention. The 2 champions focused on Taemin, the obvious threat. They didn't see Jiwoo emerge behind them until it was too late. They didn't notice Hana dropping from the ceiling until she had their flag. The arena fell silent as the victory signal sounded. 3 cubs stood in the fortified position, holding the enemy flag. 12 champions lay scattered across the battlefield, eliminated. The silence broke into chaos. Some spectators cheered, others argued. Instructors shouted at each other about tactics and honor. The entire academy was in shock. Young-soo stood up from where he'd been eliminated, his face dark with rage. He had watched his entire squad defeated by 3 beings he considered inferior. His honor was destroyed, his reputation ruined. He saw Taimin celebrating with his teammates, and something snapped inside him. He reached for his backup weapon, the one meant for emergencies only, a real weapon with real ammunition. "This ends now," Young-Soo growled, raising the weapon toward Tae-min. The arena erupted in alarm. Security began moving, but they were too far away. Instructors shouted warnings. Counselor Rathine rose from her seat in horror. Tae-min turned and saw the weapon aimed at him. He froze, understanding he was about to die. And then Dae-ho was there. Nobody had seen the human move. One moment he was at the edge of the arena. The next, he was between Young-Soo and Tae-min. His hand shot out faster than anyone thought possible, striking Young-Soo's wrist. The weapon spun away, clattering harmlessly across the floor. Dae-ho moved again, flowing like water. He swept Young-Soo's legs, controlled his fall, and pinned him to the ground without causing injury. The entire sequence took less than 2 seconds. Security arrived and took custody of Young-Soo. The Draxian was shouting about honor and revenge, but nobody listened. He had broken the most sacred rule: never harm fellow cadets outside official combat. Dae-ho helped Tae-min to his feet, checking him for injury. "You okay?" Tae-min nodded, still shaken. "You move so fast." "Human combat training," Dae-ho said quietly. "Developed over thousands of years of fighting each other. We got very good at it." The arena slowly settled. Counselor Rathine called for order. When silence finally returned, she spoke in a voice that carried authority across the entire space. "The war game is concluded. The victor is clear." She looked directly at Hana, Taemin, and Jiwoo. 3 cadets who were classified as failures have defeated our best warriors. This result cannot be ignored. Velthar stood, his expression conflicted. "Counselor, these tactics violate traditional combat doctrine. They are dishonorable, unpredictable, and contrary to everything we teach." "They are effective," Rathine countered. "And in real combat, effectiveness determines survival. Honor is meaningless if you're dead." She turned to Dae-ho. "Instructor, the Council wishes to understand your training methods. We request a full report and a permanent position as head combat instructor." The arena waited for his response. This was everything most instructors dreamed of: status, authority, recognition. Dae-ho looked at his 3 students. They were exhausted but proud. They had proven themselves against impossible odds. They had learned to believe in themselves. "I decline the position," Dae-ho said clearly. "I never wanted to change the academy. I just wanted to help 3 cadets who deserved a chance." Counselor Rathine smiled slightly, as if she had expected this answer. "Very well. But know that what you have accomplished here will not be forgotten." As the crowds dispersed, still buzzing with conversation and debate, the 3 cubs approached their instructor one final time. "What happens now?" Hana asked. "Now you graduate," Dae-ho said. "You've earned it." "Will you stay?" Jiwoo asked hopefully. Dae-ho shook his head. "My job was to train you. That job is done. Now you train others. Show them that failure is only permanent if you accept it." Tae-min stepped forward. "You saved my life today." "You would have done the same for your teammates," Dae-ho replied. "That's what I taught you. Never leave anyone behind." They stood together in the empty arena, 4 beings from different worlds, bound by the simple human principle that had saved humanity from extinction: refuse to give up, no matter the odds. 6 months had passed since the war game. The Galactic Training Academy looked the same from the outside, but everything inside had changed. Hana graduated at the top of her class. The clumsy cub who failed basic training 4 times received the highest combat honors. She was assigned to an elite reconnaissance unit where unpredictability was valued more than perfect form. Her commander specifically requested her after seeing footage of her fighting style. Taemin earned respect from species that had never respected Rakshar before. His controlled aggression and strategic thinking made him valuable to special operations teams. He led missions that required precise strikes rather than mindless violence. His squad mates trusted him completely because he had learned that protecting the team mattered more than personal glory. Jiwoo became an instructor himself. The fragile Threnny, who was too weak for combat, now taught tactical analysis to cadets twice his size. Students learned that intelligence and preparation could overcome any physical disadvantage. His classes were always full, but they all remembered who taught them these lessons. When anyone asked them, "Who trained you to fight like this?" their answer was always the same. They would smile and say simply, "The human." Daeho had left the academy quietly, just as he arrived. No ceremonies, no awards. He simply packed his small bag and departed on the next transport. He had accomplished what he came to do, or so he thought. 3 months after leaving, he received a message on his personal communicator. It was from Counselor Rath-een. 30 new cadets have arrived at the academy. They are classified as failures by traditional standards. They have specifically requested you as their instructor. Will you return? Daeho stared at the message for a long time. He had planned to go back to Earth, to retire from teaching. He was tired. The work was hard. The resistance from traditional instructors had been constant. But 30 more cubs needed help. 30 more beings who everyone else had given up on. He sent a simple reply. "I'll be there in 2 weeks." When he arrived back at the academy, he found something unexpected. Building 7, the old reject barracks, had been renovated. New equipment filled the training grounds. The isolated facility was now an official training center. A sign hung over the entrance. Alternative Combat Training Division. Velthar met him at the gate. The senior instructor looked different somehow. Less hostile, more thoughtful. "The council has authorized this facility for your use," Velthar said formally. "You will train cadets who do not fit traditional academy methods." "You opposed everything I did," Daeho said carefully. "Why the change?" Velthar was quiet for a moment. "I watched the wargame footage 147 times. I analyzed every tactic, every decision, every movement, and I realized something." "What's that?" "I was wrong." The words seemed difficult for him. "For decades, I believed there was only one way to create soldiers: strong, honorable, direct. But your students proved that survival requires adaptation. The galaxy is changing. Our enemies are changing. We must change too, or we will fail." He gestured toward the facility. 30 cadets wait inside. They come from 15 different species. All of them are considered failures. All of them requested you specifically. They heard about the 3 cubs who everyone gave up on, and they want the same chance. Daeho nodded slowly. "I'll need complete authority over training methods." "You have it." "No interference from traditional instructors." "Agreed." "And one more thing," Daeho said. "I want Hana, Taemin, and Jiwoo assigned as assistant instructors whenever their duties allow. They understand these cadets better than anyone." Velthar actually smiled, showing teeth. "Already arranged. They volunteered before you even responded to the message." Inside the facility, 30 young beings of various species waited nervously. They ranged from small to large, from weak to strong, from timid to aggressive. What they shared was simple. Everyone had told them they would fail. Daeho entered the room and the conversation stopped. 30 pairs of eyes, in various numbers and configurations, focused on the human. He didn't give a speech. He didn't make promises. He simply asked the same question he had asked 6 months ago. "Why do you want to be soldiers?" The answers came slowly at first, then faster. "Because my family expects it. Because I want to prove I'm not weak. Because I have nowhere else to go. Because someone said I couldn't do it." Daeho listened to each one. When they finished, he spoke quietly. "I'm going to tell you the truth. This will be the hardest thing you've ever done. You will hurt. You will fail. You will want to quit. Some of you might actually quit." The cadets shifted uncomfortably. This wasn't the inspiring speech they expected. "But," Daeho continued, "if you refuse to give up, if you trust your teammates, and if you're willing to learn, then I promise you this. You will become something your species has never seen before. Not because you're the strongest or the fastest, but because you'll be too stubborn to accept defeat." A small cadet near the front, a being with 6 legs and cautious eyes, raised one limb. "Is it true? Did 3 of your students really defeat 12 champions?" "Yes." "How?" "They learned what humans learned a long time ago. That survival isn't about being the best. It's about refusing to be beaten." Over the following months, the facility transformed. Daeho trained his new students using the methods he had developed. Running until exhaustion became normal. Learning to use weakness as strength became standard. Fighting smart instead of fair became doctrine. Hana visited regularly, teaching movement and unpredictability. Taimin demonstrated controlled aggression. Ji-Woo shared tactical analysis and strategic thinking. The 3 original students became legends among the new cadets. Word spread across the galaxy. Other training academies heard about the human and his alternative methods. Some dismissed it as a fluke. Others began studying the tactics. A few started implementing similar programs for their own reject cadets. One day, a human military observer named So-Jin arrived at the facility. She watched training sessions for a week, taking extensive notes. "Do you understand what you've created here?" she asked Daeho during a break. "I've created soldiers who can adapt and survive." "You've created a revolution. Military academies across 3 sectors are studying your methods. They're calling it adaptive warfare. Some species are restructuring their entire combat doctrine based on what you've proven here." Daeho looked uncomfortable. "I just wanted to help cadets who needed it." "You've done more than that. You've shown the galaxy that humans think differently. We don't have the natural weapons or armor or strength of other species, but we have something they're just beginning to understand." "What's that?" "We never accept defeat as final. We find another way, another angle, another strategy. That's what made us apex predators on Earth, and now you're teaching that to the entire galaxy." 3 years after Daeho first arrived at the academy, over 200 cadets had graduated from his program. They served in military units across known space. They had a reputation for being resourceful, adaptive, and incredibly difficult to defeat. And when anyone asked them who taught them to fight like that, the answer was always the same. "The human." Daeho continued teaching. More cadets came every cycle. More failures who just needed someone to believe in them. He was older now, grayer, but he never stopped, because there were always more cubs who needed help. One evening, Counselor Rathine visited the facility. She was ancient now, near the end of her long life. She sat with Daeho and watched the cadets train. "They're calling your methods the Daeho Protocol in official military documentation," she said. "It's being taught at academies across the galaxy." "I don't care about fame or recognition." "I know. That's why you're effective. You care about the students, not the glory." She paused. "You've changed how the galaxy thinks about warfare, about training, about who deserves a chance to serve." "I just taught them to survive." "No," Rathine said gently. "You taught them to believe in themselves. That's far more powerful than any combat technique." Years passed. Daeho eventually retired, his body too old for the physical demands of training. But his legacy continued. Hana became the head of the Alternative Combat Training Division. She trained the next generation using the methods she had learned. When cadets asked her who taught her, she would point to a photograph on the wall. A quiet human instructor standing with 3 young cubs who everyone said would fail. All 4 were smiling. Tae-min wrote the official manual on adaptive combat tactics. It was required reading at military academies across the galaxy. The dedication page read simply, "For the human who taught me that strength without control is meaningless." Jiwoo became a strategic advisor to multiple planetary defense forces. He specialized in unconventional warfare and asymmetric tactics. In his office, he kept a single piece of paper with 4 words written in Earth languages: "Refuse to give up." The galaxy had changed. Not overnight, not completely, but meaningfully. The idea that failures could succeed, given proper training, became accepted. The concept that adaptation mattered more than raw strength became doctrine. The understanding that different species required different training methods became standard. And at the center of all these changes was one simple truth. A human had taken 3 cubs that everyone abandoned and taught them to believe in themselves. Dae-ho spent his final years on a quiet planet, far from the academy. He lived simply, bothering no one, asking for nothing. But messages came from across the galaxy. Soldiers he had trained sent thanks. Commanders reported on the success of his students. Academy instructors asked for advice. The human who just wanted to help 3 cubs had accidentally changed military thinking across known space. When he died peacefully in his sleep at the age of 87, the galaxy mourned. Beings from hundreds of species attended memorial services. Former students spoke about how he changed their lives. Military leaders discussed how he changed their tactics. Historians analyzed how he changed their thinking. But the simplest tribute came from Hana, now old herself. She stood before a crowd of thousands and said only this: "He taught me that failure is not permanent. That belief matters more than strength. That refusing to quit is the most powerful weapon any soldier can have. He was the human who saved 3 cubs everyone abandoned, and through us, he saved thousands more." She pointed to a new statue unveiled at the academy. It showed a human standing with 3 young cubs of different species. All 4 looked forward with determination. The plaque read, "Instructor Dae-ho. He taught us to survive." And across the galaxy, in training facilities and military bases and combat units, when instructors asked students, "Who taught you to fight like this?" the answer echoed through the stars: the human. Because some lessons are too important to forget. And some teachers change everything by simply refusing to give up on those everyone else abandoned.